Please remain standing. Pastor Peter Burnett, chairman of the St. James Ministers Fraternal, will now do the invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, you're the eternal one to whom the founders of our country penned our prayerful anthem. We come to you because we know that we are not separated from you. We're not Babylon. We're Jamaicans that you have caused to be born here to fulfill your purpose, to rule over the environment and glorify your name. Lord, you have given us this land for our development and for your honor. We come here on this dump-up ground because we don't want it to be dump-up anymore. We come to hear the plans for the development of the city. We ask for wisdom and transparency for our people. We pray for our pastors and our ministers, for our planners, for the designers, for the engineers, for the political and civic leaders, both local and national. Lord, we pray for a spiritual revival in our Jamaica, because we know that the gun cannot renew the mind nor transform our culture. So bless us tonight. Bless our leaders that are here. Bless our Prime Minister and all the various officials. Lord, bless us with true respect for all. And we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Peter Burnett, chairman of the St. James Ministers Fraternal. May I invite you to be seated. And welcome to the official name for this area is the Closed Harbor Beach, formerly the Dump-Up Beach. And of course, it's operated by the Urban Development Corporation. So tonight you'll be hearing big plans, not just for the Closed Harbor Beach, but certainly for the wider Montego Bay, St. James, and Western Jamaica as well. Good evening to you. My name is Naomi Francis, the press secretary at the Office of the Prime Minister, and I'm absolutely pleased to be in Montego Bay tonight, the tourism capital of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves a round of applause for just being here and enjoying this evening. And so let me tell you who else we will be hearing from this evening. You'll be hearing from the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, the Minister of National Security and Member of Parliament for St. James Northwestern. You'll also be hearing from Mr. Heroy Clark, the Member of Parliament for St. James Central, as well as Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, the Attorney General and Member of Parliament for St. James West Central. You'll also be hearing from Senator Ransford Braham, the Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation, as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Audrey Sewell. We will be welcomed by the mayor of your city, Montego Bay, the beautiful Montego Bay Mayor, Homer Davis. And clearly he's a hometown favorite, right? Other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Now, we will be having a discussion for around about maybe 2.5, 3 hours with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will be here very shortly. He is in our parish as we speak. And so we're starting just ahead of his arrival. We do have a few ground rules. We ask, ladies and gentlemen, that you listen while the person who is on the microphone speaks. When it comes to the question and answer segment, we'll have a microphone in the middle. We'll ask you to go to the microphone, introduce yourselves, and ask one question. Why one question? There are so many of us, and we want to ensure that you are able to speak with your Prime Minister, ask him questions, and hear about the development plans. There are a host of resource persons here, persons from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Defense Force, the Fire Brigade, the hotel sector is here as well. I see Mr. Deere here and others. So I would want you to as well make sure that you are able to put those questions to the Prime Minister and the officials. So it would be useful if you just have one question asked. We are streaming live on social media, the social media pages of the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, JM, as well as we're coming to you live on Mellow FM and Nationwide 90 FM. So therefore, Montego Bay, St. James, and the entire Jamaica, indeed the entire world, will be certainly watching and listening to us this evening. Without further ado then, let me invite His Worship, the Mayor, Councillor Homer Davis, to do the official welcome.
Good evening. Reverend Burnett, Chairman of the St. James Ministerial Fraternal, our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Minister of National Security and Member of Parliament for Northwest St. James, Dr. Horace Chang, Attorney General and Member of Parliament for West Central St. James, Honorable Marlene Mallow IV, Member of Parliament for Central St. James, Mr. Eroy Clark, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation, Senator Ransford Braham, Senator Charles Sinclair, Honorable Godfrey Dyer, Chairman of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Danny Graham, Lieutenant Colonel Godfrey Sterling, Mr. Gerald Lee, Chief Executive Officer of the St. James Municipal Corporation, heads of department and staff of the St. James Municipal Corporation, councillors from the St. James Municipal Corporation, Mr. Winston Lawson, President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ms. Gabrielle Lee, and other directors and members of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, members of the various government agencies, members of the media, other members of the security forces, citizens of St. James, a very good evening to you all. I extend a warm, cordial greetings to everyone who are here this evening. But I want to welcome our Prime Minister back to this city and thank you for the hard work which you have been doing, especially the part that you have played in making Montego Bay safe again. Mr. Prime Minister, since the state of emergency, we have seen close to 200 murders less this year over last year in this parish of St. James. And I could not make mention of that achievement without giving full credit to the members of the security forces, without giving full credit to the citizens of this parish who, without their help, this achievement could not be possible. So it is an honor for me to be here to share in this town hall meeting for a project that will further enhance the city of Montego Bay and will allow our citizens and overseas visitors to travel thousands of miles to experience this much needed recreational space. The St. James Municipal Corporation fully supports this development, which will add value to this location. It will certainly be a thing of beauty for our citizens to enjoy their leisure time and watch the beautiful sunset. Montego Bay needs recreational spaces as the city grows and develops, and this area is one such. The St. James Municipal Corporation encourages full support of this park which will form part of our mission to take back our public spaces and to ensure that law and order becomes the order of the day. As we focus on this mega project, the St. James Municipal Corporation will not be left out. In the first quarter of 2019, we will be breaking ground at the Whole Shoe Market for the construction of a major modern arcade for our small business operators in this city. Funding for this project will be the proceeds of sale of property owned by the St. James Municipal Corporation. This sale will garner over $100 million to go towards this project. Additionally, the building fees obtained from major hotel development has been committed to assist in funding this project. And what I will say to you is that when this project is completed, it will be a big game changer for downtown Montego Bay. And soon to be signed off is the sales of the Boglands, where some $500 million will be realized from this sale. Proceeds from this sale will be used to carry out major rehabilitation work on the Charles Garden Market, which has been constructed some 50 years ago. We will bring this market to a first world standard. Soon to be on the desk of our Prime Minister is a resolution that has been passed in the St. James Municipal Corporation and has been sent to his office. It has been copied to the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development for some $385 million to be allocated for the whole overlaying of roadways in and around the city. And these roadways includes Barnett Street, Harbour Street, St. James Street, Union Street, Market Street, Creek Street, and Dome Street. Montego Bay is indeed not the tourism capital of Jamaica, but it is the tourism capital of the Caribbean. When we sell Montego Bay, or when we sell tourism in Jamaica, we sell Montego Bay. And Montego Bay doesn't stop on the Elegant Corridor. It doesn't stop at the Peninsula. It doesn't stop out in the hotel area. I'm saying it's full time that downtown Montego Bay get the full benefit of what it truly deserves. So ladies and gentlemen, as we approach our second anniversary, we are on a mission at the St. James Municipal Corporation to return this parish and this city to a place to live, work, raise family, and do business. And once again, we can look at our city and describe it as a friendly city. So ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to listen to our Prime Minister making certain declaration and making certain revelation. So once again, thank you very much for turning out in your numbers. And I say to the Prime Minister, you have a friend in us here. And the people has given me a message. They said to me, tell the Prime Minister he's to go before us and lead us into prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Worship, the Mayor Councillor Homer Davis, for that wonderful welcome. We indeed do feel welcome this evening. May I just ask those on the outside, I know I see several, maybe scores of persons standing on the outside. May I invite you on the inside to take a seat and ensure that you are fully engaged with what is happening here. So for those on the outside, flanked the sides, could you please just make your way here under the tent as well. We do have Wi-Fi. The name of the Wi-Fi that you can access free is Action 2018. So you'll be able to go and you'll be able to post your pics from our town hall here. So ladies and gentlemen, let us now welcome to the stage Mrs. Audrey Sewell, CDJP, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Pastor Peter Burnett, Chairman St. James Ministers Fraternal for the Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, Attorney General and Member of Parliament for St. James Western. We have another Member of Parliament, Mr. Errol Clark. I'm not sure, I'm very sorry what the name of your constituency, but your people know. Yes, Central St. James. Okay, thank you very much. His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Homer Davis, councillors from the St. James Municipal Corporation, executives from the various agencies. I'm sorry, Mayor Davis has gone through a long list, so pardon me that I will not repeat the list that I have before me. Yes, thank you. But you know yourselves, we have some heads of agencies like Professor Gordon Shirley from the Port Authority of Jamaica. We have Miss Heather Pinnock, acting GM. But prior to that, I should acknowledge Senator Ransford Graham QC, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation. Everybody, good evening. Yes. I am very happy to be here this evening to participate in yet another town hall meeting. I am part of a ministry that is led by the Prime Minister and with support from 4 other ministers. I am happy to be here with them. Those who are here will be here in person or in spirit to extend a few words to you, just to give you some information about the ministry and the support that we are providing to the government to ensure that its policies and programs are implemented effectively and efficiently. Development forms the nucleus of any government, and the government of Jamaica is cognizant of this fact. Hinge on our success as a people is the government's ability to create an enabling environment that facilitates growth and sustainable development. Therefore, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and its over 40 agencies have undertaken certain major projects island-wide. And we speak of projects that are being undertaken here in Montego Bay by the port, or have been undertaken by the Port Authority of Jamaica, the National Works Agency, project to be undertaken by NROC, the UDC, and other agencies of this ministry. The ministry has responsibility for the portfolio areas of water, housing, works, infrastructure development, environment, land, and climate change. Montego Bay, the second city, is a part of government's vision for development. And in this regard, we have upcoming, and you will hear more about all the details of the plans for here, the Montego Bay Perimeter Road that is in its planning phase. This project is being led by the National Road Operating and Construction Company, and it will see the significant reduction in travel time, opening up the north coast, as well as reduce the traffic congestion in the town, which has stifled growth and development in the city. It is anticipated that following its completion, there should be a boost in investment in and around the Montego Bay area. The Port Authority I mentioned before is another of our agencies that continues to develop our ports and their infrastructure. in an effort to boost economic activity. In this regard, plans are afoot to construct a floating dock in Port Royal, Prof? Yes. And this will allow cruise ships into the harbor without affecting the sunken city. Finally, we have the Urban Development Corporation, and they're out here this evening in their numbers, which is an instrumental partner in the redevelopment of our island infrastructure. In this regard, they have undertaken, under the direction of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, several projects island-wide. And we are here, the Closed Harbor Beach Park, which will improve the aesthetics of the second city, Montego Bay. The redevelopment of downtown Kingston, which will see the transformation of the waterfront. The UDC is also leading, and you probably would have heard, in the Heroes Circle Development Project with the creation of Government Campus. Although in its early stages, planning is in progress for the necessary feasibility studies and consultations to guide the plans. These are but only some of the projects that will transform our Jamaican landscape. And time is against me, I see, so I will stop here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is working assiduously to ensure sustainable development for today and the generations to come. Yes, through our guidance, our input and effort, we will make development happen. The Office of the Prime Minister, which I also am a part of, is pleased to host this town hall meeting, and we do look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Permanent Secretary Audrey Sewell. She is a woman that is steeped in the policies and procedures of government, but the Prime Minister is also helping the rest of civil service to understand that you should also pay attention to process and outcomes. And this is a woman who is absolutely outcome-oriented. All those plans you hear of, she helps to drive those coming through. Give her another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So the Permanent Secretary introduced Professor Gordon Shirley. Prof, if you could please stand and wave to the crowd. Professor Shirley is actually the Honorable Professor Gordon Shirley, Order of Jamaica. Recently, he was joined in that very esteemed group by one of your own. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask the Honorable Godfrey Dyer, Order of Jamaica, to stand and wave to you. Thank you so much. And now another hometown, homegrown person will speak to us. A first-time member of Parliament. You will hear him in some of the parliamentary committees making his contribution, asking questions. And certainly he will tell you a lot more, too, about his plans for Central St. James. May I invite the Member of Parliament, Mr. Heroy Clark, to address you.
All protocol being observed. Good evening, everyone. Today is a blessed day. Today is a peaceful day. Let me, on behalf of the citizenry of Montego Bay, St. James Central by extension, welcome all the visitors into Montego Bay, the friendly city. We are very appreciative of all that has been done and is being done to Montego Bay. Mr. Mayor, I want to say to you, sir, today you have now enrolled in the list of few very good friends that I have. After listening to you carefully, all those streets and markets that you will be rehabilitating, it gives me the strength to make sure that I walk with a Fenzik or a Panadol to make sure that your head don't hurt you because you have just become a new friend. Likewise, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Holness, is in that same book. Because for far too long, Montego Bay was left behind. What I want us to understand, that God works in mysterious ways. And there's a story in the Bible, the story of young Joseph. Joseph was sold to the Egyptians, but little did the Egyptian knows that he would be the builder of their economy. Today, we say to the Prime Minister of Jamaica, you are our little Joseph. I continue to hear many outsiders refer to Montego Bay as the second city. I want to say to them, Montego Bay is not the second city. Montego Bay is a city. And by the time the new highway is constructed, by the time that welcome sign at the airport is completed, and by the time the Closed Harbor Beach development is completed, then all arguments will be settled. It is going to be a done deal. Montego Bay will regain its status as the friendly city, the city that makes the entire Jamaica spin, the city that brings in all, or most of all, that beloved foreign exchange. And we must continue to work. We must continue to give the blessings to those who make it work. And once again, I say to those who are here for the first time or who are here visiting with us, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Heroy Clark. All right, full of energy. You may see some very friendly persons handing out a flyer like this. It really is the Urban Development Corporation's plans that they have specifically for this location. So may I invite you to, if you haven't gotten one yet, just take one and read exactly what's happening, and you see a lovely photograph of what is to come. Am I correct, Mrs. Pinnock? Exactly what is to come, all right. And I'm sure you'll see it in 3D on, online and on social media at some point very soon as well. All right, so our town hall tonight is Action 2018. And there's a woman who is part of the parliamentary group in the House of Representatives, who is a woman of action. She is one of your members of parliament, member of parliament for West Central, St. James. She's also the Attorney General. May I invite Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, QC, to address you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I really wish my colleague, Heroy, had given me a Fenzik, because I've come down with the flu, but nothing could have stopped me from being here tonight. I want to say a special good night to the St. James West Central constituents who are in the house. I stand here in two roles, as a member of parliament and as the Attorney General. As your member of parliament, I am very proud and pleased to be part of a strong team of parliamentary representatives, I will say without fear of contradiction that St. James has the strongest team of parliamentarians in the government. St. James has a strong team also at local government, which means that you are placed to be well served. I know that because enough things are going, those who are waiting for their issues to be dealt with are becoming impatient. I see myself in a somewhat different role from some of my colleagues as part of the government. First and foremost is to ensure that the machinery of government works for you, the people, starting with my own constituents. Government has no separate business of its own, but to serve the people and ensure that people's lives are made easier. As Member of Parliament, I will make representation until every single issue is addressed on behalf of my constituents. And I really don't care what my colleague MPs say. I dare them to get up and do the same on behalf of the people who send them to Parliament. As Attorney General, I have the privilege of seeing government right across every ministry, every department, every agency. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you sufficiently how concerned I have been that laws are passed and people don't respect them. Not only the man in the street, but government players themselves, making life difficult for you, making it harder for you to be served. I cannot understand how it is that when people are dealing with government, that you have to jump so many hoops. Life is so difficult, sometimes you give up before you start. Well, this team is here to tell you that we will stop at nothing to make the processes simpler and easier, and so that you know that the rules on the inside, when you go to be served at a government office, are the rules that are communicated to you on the outside, and you're never taken by surprise. St. James is at a place where so many things are happening. I remember when I came here seeking to be one of the representatives, the streets were dirty. The streets were unsafe. The gunshots were firing left, right, and center. So many persons were dying. In fact, the second day I came here, someone was shot and killed in broad daylight at 9 a.m. And the condition of the road was such that no emergency vehicle could get to him to save the life. 45 years that community told me that their road was never rehabilitated. And today, as my colleague MP Dr. Clark said, go look on the carpet up there. Go have a walk we're talking about. Work is being done now in Bogue Hilltop, 30-odd years, and persons thought it would never happen. But you know, I'm so proud of the work that we have done in the zones of special operation. I remember the many nights Prime Minister, myself, and the rest of the team sat up. There were some times when we went into the wee hours of the morning. And I remember hearing all the naysayers, and some of them are trying to take the glory for the transformation that has happened in the Mount Salem zone of special operation. For those who live there and are experiencing the change and are realizing that them not live in a dump, that they can stand and be proud citizens of St. James, this is your team working on your behalf. The other thing that is of major concern to me is how citizens have been treated by the police. But I am so proud to see how the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the Jamaica Defense Force have shown up in a most professional way in dealing with the people of St. James under the state of emergency and under the zone of special operation. I don't want you to take it for granted. We spent many hours, many nights, looking at all of the concerns that have been raised about policing, even as we were putting measures in place to address citizen safety and your security. And boy, the police have stepped up to the plate. And I want to commend the army and I want to commend them because now you feel that they are here to serve and protect you. And that didn't come overnight. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from the Prime Minister and the team about more things to come for St. James. I say that the redevelopment of Jamaica is starting right here in St. James. And sooner than later, everybody will want to come to St. James. So, Mayor, before I take my seat, I have to use this opportunity to say to you as head of the local authority and your team that deals with permit, that we can't afford for any shortcutting of any development that will leave the citizens with all kinds of problems, whether it's road problem or sewage problem or poor finishing. Those days are done. And until the Prime Minister relieves me of the position of Attorney General, I say to the public bodies, I am prepared to exercise the power granted in the office of Attorney General and haul any of you before the court for failing the citizens of this country. Time come. Time come. I am so pleased to have the opportunity to represent you and to be part of a government that truly cares for you. Boy, Jamaicans love prosperity. You'll hear from the Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, QC, the Attorney General, and certainly Member of Parliament for West. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems the Prime Minister came just in time to hear from you. I'm sure he enjoyed that warm welcome that you gave him. Thank you so much. And so you just heard from the Attorney General, Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, QC. I told you she's a woman of action. And she does say a lot as well in Parliament. And now, ladies and gentlemen, time to listen and watch keenly. We have a gentleman who sits in the Senate, but he's also the chairman of the Urban Development Corporation. And you know what the slogan of the Urban Development Corporation is, right? Making development happen. So they've taken it right from the Prime Minister's pages, because the Prime Minister is about infrastructure development and the vision for Jamaica. And so, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to give him a warm welcome, Senator Ransford Braham, Chairman of the Urban Development Corporation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening. Reverend Burnett, Prime Minister, Most Honorable and Holiness, Your Worship, the Mayor, Homer Davis, members of Parliament who are present and ministers, the members of the board of the UDC who are also here today. Two of them are here, Mr. Hicks and Mr. Dare. And, well, yes. Are you hearing me now? Okay. But I also want to acknowledge the permanent secretary. And then I would like to mix up the protocol thing a little bit by going to the next step and to acknowledge the heads of agencies that work with the UDC over many years who are here today, their chairmen and their executive leaders. Some of them I've seen here, but I would like to highlight particularly the chairman of the TEF and the TEF leadership, because without them, we wouldn't be here today for the particular purpose dealing with the Close Harbor Beach development. Thank you very much, TEF. And so I want to just quickly tell you that 2 years ago, I was made the chairman of the UDC, to my surprise. And then one of my first visits was to Montego Bay to meet the leadership of this great city. And I will say to you that the response at the time, should I say, was skeptical. I wouldn't say it was warm. In fact, it was not warm. And when I listened to them, people said, well, all the things the UDC people come do is promise and then go away and nothing is done. And they list 1,000 things that they said the UDC over the years has promised. I was able to remind them, though, of some of the things the UDC has in fact done, and they acknowledge that. But they are saying, what have you done for me lately? That is what the message was. And I said to them, look, we can't do everything. But if we could choose one thing that you think the UDC has promised among the list, and we should do one of them, what would it be? And I said, why don't you do the development at Close Harbor Beach at the time called Dump Up Beach? And I said, very well then, I'm going to give you my solemn promise that we are going to do it. I didn't know how we were going to do it since others didn't get it done, but I promised anyhow. And I put it to the Prime Minister. And I put it to the Minister of Tourism and the TEF. And I said, that is something that we need to do. And so I want to acknowledge those leaders of Montego Bay who set me straight 2 years ago, and say today that I am not here promising this time around. I am saying to you that come January, the Prime Minister will turn over the earth, and that part that we promise will be done. Please applaud the UDC for promise that will be kept. I have a very short time. So I want to say I thank you for your support. The councillors, my colleague Senator Charles Sinclair, who ensures that every week that I see him, he make a mention of the UDC's plans and try to ensure that we make no mistake. Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you very much. And so I will leave you today by saying that the UDC is not only working in Montego Bay, but we are in Kingston. We are doing the Parliament. We are doing the development of that part of downtown Kingston for Government Oval. We are in Ocho Rios, and we are the other parts of downtown Kingston. And there are lots of places that the UDC's footprint will be seen. The glory days of the UDC is only just beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Bremen. Now we'll invite you to watch a brief video that the UDC has prepared on the development plans here. Golden glow indeed. Give the UDC another round of applause, celebrating 50 years this year. And certainly, it's not just a dream that they have to make the development happen. It's a vision, and they shared the vision there about this particular property. And certainly you would have been able to see the 360 view of what is to come, courtesy of the UDC. This evening, we were to have been joined by the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, the Member of Parliament for East Central St. James. He's been doing a wonderful job with tourism. He's actually now en route to the United Arab Emirates to ensure that we have tourists coming from there to Little Jamaica. Do you know that earlier this month, or was it last month, we welcomed the first major flight of Russian tourists, right? And that will be a weekly flight, is it, Delano? A weekly flight to Jamaica. Give the tourism team a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Last year alone, we enjoyed record tourist arrivals in Jamaica. And so, partly it's due to your warmth, your hospitality here in Montego Bay as the center of Jamaica's tourism. So give yourselves a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And now I'll bring to you a very hardworking man in Jamaica. Really, he is, you know, in sporting analysis, you'd say, especially in cricket, he doesn't drop the ball at all. He was at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, did a fantastic job in terms of infrastructure development. And now he's at the Ministry of National Security. And he has been paying attention to ensure that we get things done and get things right. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, his team is here as well. I see the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. McIntosh. May I invite to the stage the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, the Minister of National Security, to address you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening. I think at this point I have two roles to play. First, I want to add a personal welcome to our Prime Minister, Honorable Andrew Michael, who is not just to Montego Bay, to the great constituency of Northwest St. James. I've heard some more cheers to the video we just had, but of course to my colleague, Member of Parliament, Mrs. Marley Mallow-Fort in West Central St. James, another great constituency of St. James. And of course, no, no, you got the ball wrong. And of course, to my colleague, Member of Parliament, Era Clark, Central St. James, and His Worship the Mayor. I greet Councillor Homer Davis, good friend, and another outstanding political leader in the West, Mr. Prime Minister. The political team that will keep the West green. I know it's a government evening, you know. And of course, my friend and colleague and councillor, Senator Charles Sinclair, the strong man in the town, sir. I want to recognize, without too much, I won't refer to more of the Greens, but I would recognize my both permanent secretaries, my own permanent secretary, Ms. Diane McIntosh, from the Ministry of National Security, and Mrs. Audrey Sewell from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, who I've had the privilege of working with for some time, dedicated to the development program, to Senator Ronsford Bryan, the chairman of UDC you just heard from. I'm sorry to go to that. And my apologies, I didn't look across. I have to just pause and recognize my good friend and the MP from Eastern Hanover, David Brown, Montego Bay. All right? And now the head of agency who plays a critical role in government, but is playing a very powerful role in St. James, although not as visible as the UDC because their work happens to be in primarily Montego Bay Freeport. Or the chairman, the CEO of the Port Authority, Prof. Shirley, who sits in the front row. To my many friends in Montego Bay, members of the boards of agencies in government, like Mr. Godfrey Dyer of TF, who is our OJ, Godfrey Dyer, the council of the St. James Parish Council, the many business people here this evening, and the constituents from the various constituencies present. Again, I say good evening to you and welcome to this very special town hall meeting at which the Prime Minister will be addressing you in a little while. My job, of course, partly not only welcoming everyone here, but again to make a few observations about Montego Bay and St. James in general. The moderator recognized the absence of my colleague, Minister Ed Bartlett, who is currently overseas, and his usual drive to ensure that the tourism industry continue to grow from strength to strength. He would be here without a doubt, and this, what's happening, is partly due to his own efforts. I want to comment, Montego Bay, we can agree, for many years has been a town that has seen a fair level of dynamism and economic growth. But much of it in earlier years came from very informal activity, and the town grew without any kind of order. At one stage, it were made famous for having 21 informal settlements. And while the number 21 strikes a chord, I think what was more significant is the number of households involved. When I came into Montego Bay, I went to campaign in Norwood. I realized that, in fact, when we took the community of Norwood and Flanco, there was some 21,000 houses in contiguity which were built in an informal manner. In essence, we had a town growing like a cauliflower. Today, we are still growing. The difference is that this government has sought to put order and structure in place to ensure that we can have order development and sustainable activity for the people of Montego Bay, and genuinely move in a dynamic way, offer people the opportunity to move from poverty to prosperity in a structured manner. That as well has happened, the change as this government has come to power, and in particular in the last 2 years. For many years, when you look at infrastructure, I said, if you think about what's happening in an informal settlement, 20,000 houses in informal settlement is bigger than Portmore. And you have to catch up by building infrastructure for that level. One will recall that when they're building Greater Portmore, there were 10,000 houses, and this was highlighted as the largest housing development in the history of Jamaica. And it cost billions of dollars. In fact, just putting water out there recently to try and catch up with the Portmore, we spent another $18 billion adding another pipeline to Portmore. Montego Bay had more housing than that, with nothing of any sort being put in place, neither road, water, nor light or otherwise. The government have sought very systematically, both in our first dispensation and currently, to bring about order to those infrastructure. We have, at the government level, and ourselves as at the minister, but also great support from our individuals in the community, in work in the community, from Mr. Dyer, Mr. Deere, Mr. Hicks, and others who are on the boards in various areas of government. This evening, I just mentioned to provide a framework for the Prime Minister to speak to the wider issues. You know, the first time that Montego Bay was identified as needing a perimeter road was back in, I think it was as far back as 2004. Kingsley Thomas spoke of building a road around Montego Bay to ensure that downtown Montego Bay would not be congested. And we have talked about it and talked about it from then. At the time, it was projected to cost 75 billion US. You do recall, Winston? And a route was looked at. Nothing happened, and this government is today committed and already started design work to ensure that at the end of the next calendar year, we can begin the Montego Bay perimeter road that will see opportunities for massive development around Montego Bay. You not only relieve the congestion downtown to allow for renewal of our urban areas and prevent the urban decay, but you'll be opening up the areas around and connecting the Montego Bay Freeport to the north side where the airport is, and that will make Montego Bay one of the prime destination for business activity anywhere in the Caribbean. There are specific where it will come. We speak of things like home porting, and the Montego Bay Freeport is now maybe the Caribbean's finest multi-purpose port. Led by the Port Authority, we'll have the facilities for cruise shipping, home porting, and cargo, and the fuel terminal. And because of its proximity to the airport, and with the perimeter road coming downstream, it will be easy to get from the airport to Freeport in less than 10 minutes. It makes the prime destination for home porting. So it's not a matter of making it easy to get around. But that road will form the hub for additional infrastructure development around here. Because we'll be looking at now expanding Barney Street from the junction with the road in Bogue, right up to Barney Street, 4 lanes. We'll be taking a road to bypass the Long Hill roads that remain a congested and tragic area and a challenging area for drivers, and extending all that the way, so you'll have a highway ranging from Bogue right to Ferry and Savamar, and therefore Montego Bay, Savamar, the one great connection. The plan is, and this Prime Minister is a great builder and a planner. So when that is finished, we're not going to leave it there. And when we make commitments on infrastructure, we just don't talk. He'll be seeking to ensure that there'll be an adequate highway all the way from here to Negril. That means with a highway going to Sav, back around to Negril and back to Montego Bay, the entire western region will be opened up for development and to bring increased opportunity and jobs. The last thing I commented, of course, we have gone through a period where we recognize in Montego Bay had significant and major levels of criminal activity. We have taken steps to correct that problem, and we have certainly moved in the right direction. We have already, for the course of the year, would say we have had 197 less homicides in Montego Bay than we did than last year. 197 murders less than last year. We cannot keep the state of emergency going forever, but we intend to ensure that we'll have a structure in Montego Bay that can maintain law and order. The Prime Minister's Minister of Defense has already instructed and have in place the permanent stationing of the Jamaica Regiment No. 2 Battalion at the airport, and it's based there. That means they'll be in the western region to assist the police at all times in security. And they have proved themselves extremely effective and professional. We'll also be moving to ensure that we have a new police station for police residents in Montego Hills to host Mobile West. That means there'll be 250 to 300 mobile reserve officers based in Montego Bay at all times to ensure that we can take security to St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, and Trelawney effectively at all times. So that you need not to worry. This government is not only committed to moving you from poverty to prosperity, but we see as our first duty to protect our citizens, to ensure safety and security of every single Jamaican. So that our people, the little old lady, but Miss Jean from Dallas Road can go to church at Sun Valley Road and prayer meeting during the week. Whether in Mount Salem, then come out and go to the Open Bible Church week and go to prayer meeting. And the youth man can still have a birthday party during the week if he so chooses. That will come back. We had to go through this stage because we had a challenge. We are dealing with it. It is taking time to adjust, but we want to commit to you. We are taking it to a point where we can ensure that the people have confidence in our work, the work of the security forces. Much more work will be done, but I just want to assure you we have identified the problem. We're going to work with them, and we have a Prime Minister and a leader who takes a careful look at these issues, give us instructions, and we'll work together as a team to ensure that Montego Bay will be safe, Montego Bay will be prosperous, dynamic, and this will still be the place to choose to live, work, and raise your families come 2030. The best city in the Caribbean. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Horace Chang, the Member of Parliament for North West St. James, and yes, host Member of Parliament, right? Nobody can take that from you. We are on your turf. Thank you so much, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to invite the Most Honorable Andrew Holness to speak with you. He's a man of vision, who wants to ensure there's structure and order to Jamaica, a strategic planner, and yes, the builder of Jamaica. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, ladies and gentlemen.
My dream, my dream, my dream. Tell you my dream is to live my dream. My dream, yes, is to live my dream. But it is to make your dreams happen as well. You know, every time I hear that song, I want to sing and dance. None of them I do well, by the way. But I try. Thank you, moderator, Naomi Francis. I wasn't here to be blessed by Pastor Burnett. Pastor, where are you? But I'm sure you had me in your prayers. The President of the Republic of Montego Bay, the Honorable Minister of National Security, and the host member of Parliament, Horace Chang, my good friend. The Attorney General. Now, I give you a little secret about the Attorney General. Should I? Do I have your permission? Regardless. I called her this morning and she said she wasn't feeling too well. She was coming down with something and she wasn't sure she would be making it here to speak. So when I was driving in, I'm hearing someone in full flight speaking. And I said, who is that? Is that the Attorney General who was having second thoughts, doubts as to whether or not she would be in a position to speak? But such it is, you know, when you stand in front of the platform and you see such an audience, you get smitten by a bug that gives you the energy to deliver the most rousing speeches. And I was very impressed to hear the Attorney General put on her political hat and deliver such a rousing presentation. Our mayor. Now, you said it. He has distinguished himself in local governance, and he has done it with efficiency and dignity. Yes, he has certainly without question, he has certainly done a very good job in Montego Bay. I want to acknowledge Member of Parliament Heroy Clark, Member of Parliament Dave Brown, who are always here, hard workers in Montego Bay, St. James, and Hanover. Please, a round of applause. I want to acknowledge your former mayor, now Senator, Charles Sinclair. Another hard worker for St. James, for Montego Bay. I want to acknowledge as well the chairman of the UDC, Senator Ransford Braham and his team. The executive director of the UDC is, yes, did I say I'll be acting executive director of the UDC, Heather Pinnock, and the UDC team and board members who are here. And you would have seen the vision being presented. And my job is to ensure that that vision becomes a reality. I want to acknowledge our permanent secretaries who are here. Permanent secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, permanent secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, a lady who has an extensive reach in government, Mrs. Audrey Sewell. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of National Security is also here, Ms. Diane I want to make sure I acknowledge everyone. So, I believe I have to acknowledge Professor Gordon Shirley, Chairman and the Chief Executive Officer of the Port Authority of Jamaica, who is doing a great job in making significant improvements to our port facilities in Montego Bay. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We have these gatherings because it is important for the government to interact with the citizens. This government is not afraid of facing the citizens. It is absolutely important for the strength of our democracy that the government stands before the people, face them, even in difficult times, take their questions, provide answers, but more so, give a vision of what it is that the government that you have elected intends to do, and to get the feedback from you to see whether or not the vision meets your approval or whether or not the vision can be improved. The exercise does not always turn out well. Sometimes you have digression. Sometimes you have chaos. But more often than not, I find them to be very useful, because the questions that are asked, even questions that sometimes sound outlandish, when you really analyze them, they give you a certain insight which allows you, as the political leader and the executive leadership that is here of the government, to recraft and rethink. And it gives you an idea of where you need to do more public relations, greater communications, areas that you need to pay more attention to. So we have these events in a way that is not sanitized. This is the raw engagement. This is the raw politics at work, people relating to their leaders. And that is the beauty and strength of Jamaica. There are many countries in the world where this is not possible or done, but it is done right here in our country. That makes us strong. The PIOJ would have by now alerted the nation that they are projecting 1.9% growth for the July to September quarter. It's not, I'm not happy with this, but it's not bad news. It could be better news, but it continues to show that the economy is moving in the right direction. Last quarter, we had a real GDP growth of 2.2%, as reported by Statin. So PIOJ gives the projection, Statin gives you the actually recorded result. So who knows? Maybe we will be above. But such it is with statistics, they go up and they go down. The important thing is not the points. It is the trajectory, the point-to-point movement. And what is clear is that the Jamaican economy is moving in the right direction, as measured by growth. What I'm particularly happy about is the employment outturn. Since we have been measuring employment statistics, starting, I believe, in 1968, in 2018, July, we saw the lowest reported unemployment rate, 8.4%. That means we would have had the highest number of Jamaicans employed in the history of Jamaica. In particular, youth unemployment declined by 5.3% to now be at 22.2%. These are very encouraging figures. The business process outsourcing industry, which forms a large part of the economy nationally and certainly in St. James, is doing quite well. It is expanding. But there is an irony in all of this, in that industry is expanding. Unemployment is declining because obviously that industry is pulling in more labor, but we have hit up on a wall. We do not have enough trained labor immediately to fulfill the expansion of the industry. It is a good problem to have so long as you solve it. And it is the intention of the government of Jamaica to move very swiftly in this regard. We cannot have our industries growing fast as they are, and we are not supplying them with the trained labor to sustain that growth. So, if you have a son or a daughter who is at home doing nothing, complaining that they can't find a job, I would encourage you to get them enrolled in one of the many training programs offered by the Heart Trust NTA. In several of the training programs offered by the Hope program, we conducted one such program in Mount Salem. There was one organization that required 400, was it? 400 workers, and we could only find 60. But yet, wherever you drive, you will see a set of young men quite happily perched on a wall, digging a hole in their hand middle. All over communities in Jamaica, when we need them working in the industries that are growing, in tourism, in BPO, in mining, in construction. So there is obviously a change. Nobody should be telling me that there is no job. If you are not trained, then that could very well be the reason why you don't have a job. And so now the government is seeking your help. One of the things you can do as a citizen is to use your influence over the people you have control of. Your children, your nephew, your cousin. Get them into the training programs so that they can get jobs. If the economy continues on the path that it is now set, Jamaica will be in a position where it will have a job for every single citizen who is able-bodied and can work. That may sound inconceivable to many of us because 70% of the population never experienced a time when Jamaica was booming. And yes, there was a time when Jamaica was booming. In the 50s and in the 60s, we had growth rates at one point in excess of 10%. Can you imagine that? Between 1962 and 1972, we had growth rates more than 5% for most of those years in the decade, and as high as 13%. Unfortunately, for the last half a century almost, we have existed in a period where we have either declined or experienced very weak growth. So the belief that the country can reach full employment is not yet grounded in the minds of the citizens. But I give you the undertaking that Jamaica will reach full employment. And believe it or not, there are countries in this region, in the Caribbean, that have full employment. Trinidad has full employment to the point where they import labor. And Jamaica can do the same. We can get to the point where we have provided employment for all our citizens, but because our national economic environment is such, businesses choose to locate here. And that is where we're heading. That is what your government is doing. Critical to all of that is security. But before I address the topic of security, I want every single Jamaican to appreciate that when we talk about prosperity, prosperity is as much for the rich man as it is for the poor. In fact, prosperity means more to the poor than the rich. And we want every single Jamaican to experience and appreciate prosperity. So the contract that I have with Jamaicans is that when I come here to tell you that the economy is growing, you may not appreciate or understand that figure, because it is possible that the economy can grow and your household doesn't grow. We have seen that happen in the past. The kind of growth that we are promoting is what I call growing from the roots, where the growth must take place in the community, in your household, in your personal life. And the best way to ensure that growth is shared equitably is that if investments are made, people must get jobs. Yes, because employment is independence in your hands. And this government is ensuring that. As we stand here, we have proven it. Economy is growing and jobs are growing. It is very important that that is the case to ensure that there is fairness and equity in the society, because the historical context of Jamaica is inequality. The haves and the have-nots. And I can't be your prime minister and allow the widening gap of income inequality. No. The Jamaica Labour Party government must ensure that growth is fair and equitable, and that every single Jamaican benefits from the economic growth of the country. But before we reach to Zion, when I was growing up, I used to hear the man on the street say, "Boy, Babylon, Babylon, the evil system." And what we are working towards is Zion. Yes. So Jamaica will have its Zion as we move away from the Babylon system. Yes. So, an important part of that movement from poverty to prosperity is security. Security. And I want to spend a few minutes to address that. Montego Bay has a particular energy about it. I don't know of anywhere else in the island or in the Caribbean that has that kind of energy. It's a special energy. Some people say it is almost a frontier mentality. It's a level of, independence, of go-get-itness, of, building, of entrepreneurialism, that sometimes if it is left unguided, will get into all kinds of problems. And I see some smiles around the place because I'm talking in code, but obviously you get what I'm saying. We understand this. It is not the intention of the government to crush the natural energy and entrepreneurialism and go-get-itness of the people of Montego Bay. There are some persons who like chaos, who like disorder. They make supernormal profits in chaos and disorder, whilst everybody else suffer. And in these kinds of situations, those people who can survive in chaos, they reinforce it. And they pretend as if they are Robin Hood, but they only come to rob your hood. And in case you have another meaning, I said they came to rob your neighborhood. And you know them by various names. But the one that we always call them, they are the Dons. And the gang members and gang leaders who give you or pretend to give a sense of security. But that's only artificial. It is now time to ensure that there is democratic security. That there is genuine security of communities. That everyone can profit from security. And we recognize that in the development of Montego Bay, from a town to a city, its development has outstripped the security provisions that were made. So what you have been experiencing over the last decade is an underinvestment in your security. That is the only way to describe it. And I don't mean that the government has to put in necessarily more money and more police stations, but the government has to acknowledge and understand that no city, indeed no community, can grow, prosper, and be sustainable without having adequate security. We have had a deficit in security, therefore, for a long time. It is not going to be corrected overnight. The government putting in $1 billion of investment in security this year does not mean that next year your security problem goes away. Because the nature of security is such that it is intergenerational. Bear in mind that the criminal is not a single existent the best way to describe the criminal is that he's not a single entity existing in your community. The criminal has a network. The criminal only exists because a network supports the criminal. Whether it is the girlfriend, the wife, the brother, an outsider family, it could be a businessman, it could be attachment to a political figure. That's it. That is how criminality exists. So it is not broken in one cycle. It takes time. And I want the citizens of Montego Bay to appreciate the complexity of the crime problem that we have. That it is not a snap of a finger. Nevertheless, there are some actions that the government can take to immediately bring under control runaway problems. Like you have been experiencing over the last 5 years, runaway problems with murder. The government has acted decisively, and we have brought that largely, not completely, but largely under control. But the element, the criminal element, with the capacity, with the propensity, and with the motive, still exists in many communities. That is the reality. And the government is not going to take short-term measures. And we're not going to come to you and tell you, oh, we are doing so well in security. We are well aware that the criminal element is not merely the street-level criminal. There are those who are masterminds, those that make it their point of duty to corrupt our institutions, to put some of our law enforcement people on payroll, to work with some of our businessmen to facilitate corrupt acts that have their tentacles in the political elites. And that has to be broken. You know why it has to be broken? Because in as much as some of you benefit from it, there is no benefit that can justify the tears of a mother losing her daughter who has not to do with anything, doing her nails business, and some evil, cruel, inhuman person walks up with a gun, looks her in the eyes, and takes her life. There's nothing that you or I could say to that mother who drops on the floor, losing herself in tears, crying back for her daughter. There's no benefit that you gain from that justifies that act. And some people say, well, it don't happen to me, so I don't matter. It could happen to you. And if you consider that you had over 300 murders last year, it happened to 300 and odd people. In fact, you had more murders than the national rate of car accidents. So the statistical comparison would be that if you lived in Montego Bay, you had a greater chance of being murdered than by being hit by a car. That's not to be clapped for. I'm just merely pointing out to you what the situation was. This year, you have 199 murders less than you had last year. So for 199 persons, it didn't happen to you, thank God. But the number of murders we have, I didn't carry the figures with me. Whatever it is, I believe it's 90. Still too much. Still too much. And I want the criminals to know. Some of them named Killy Killy and Sickhead and whatever fearful name you want to call yourself. We are going to get you wherever you are. In our actions, the citizens can be assured that you will be respected. There's one thing I have emphasized with the security forces is that they are there to serve the citizens of this country with respect and dignity. I don't need any international agency to tell me that we must respect human rights. We, as a country that is a sovereign nation, must have that within ourselves. For hundreds of years, we have suffered abuse. We must never become abusers of our own. So we have formed the National Security Council, which brings together the security apparatus of the nation. And every month I have a meeting with them. And every month when I meet with them, I drive that home. Respect the citizens. Treat them with respect. Once you get the citizens to trust you and believe in you, you have solved half of the problem. There are always bad eggs, bad apples. It is time that we get them out of the bunch. And the government is working towards that. And we will accomplish that. I raise the issue of security to say to you that the government is not going to relent. The government will implement measures and stick with them for as long as it takes to bring genuine security to your communities. We want to see peace. We want you to live in peace. There can be no prosperity without peace. So the people of Mount Salem, they are experiencing a period of quiet. I wouldn't call it peace as yet. There are many issues to be addressed in that community. We have started on many of them. The next phase now is to deal with their land settlement issues, their titling, to give them permanency in the asset that they own. Once that is done, and we ensure that there is community participation, and that people are wardens of their own peace, that they can look to their neighbor and say, don't do that, without fear that the neighbor is going to go for a gun and do something illegal to them. Once we reach to that point, then we know that there can be peace, and the peace is going to be maintained by the citizens. That is what we are targeting. We are examining other communities in St. James where other actions will be taken. Not just St. James, but the entire northwestern corridor. We see what is happening in Hanover. We see what is happening in Westmoreland. And we are not turning a blind eye. But when we act, it will be decisive. It will be instrumental. And therefore, we are taking our time to plan carefully, recognizing the resource constraints that we have. And as we speak about resource constraints, I want to commend the members of the security forces operating within the SOE in St. James. I know it has been a long haul, very tiring. I know some of your men and women only get to go home and say hi and turn around and come back again. It is the sacrifice that they make, and it is a sacrifice for which we are indebted and very grateful. And it is a sacrifice that you, the citizens, should acknowledge. For the first time, we are at a point where we have the security forces operating in such a way that you can be proud of them. So I want to give the assurance to the citizens and the business people as well of Montego Bay that we are going to do whatever it takes to ensure that security is established and sustained. And on that platform of security, combined with your energy, your entrepreneurialism, your enterprising nature, that Montego Bay will become the fastest growing economy in the English-speaking Caribbean. Minister Bartlett is not here, and he would not feel happy if I did not mention that tourism continues to do well, and that the city of Montego Bay is doing even better with tourism. You know, Ed Bartlett tells you, we had 4.3 million stopover and cruise visitor arrivals last year, bringing $3 billion worth of revenue. And so far this year, we have 2.4 million stopover and 1.8 million cruise visitors, bringing revenues of $3.3 billion. That's an 8.6% increase over the revenues of last year, and the year not done yet. I'm not going to go through all the things that are happening in the area. Leave that to Ed. He would be upset if I didn't leave anything for him to talk about. So I'll leave some things for him. Very, very good news. I did, however, see a meme on social media regarding a particular sign. And I take these things very seriously. I get a report every morning as to what are the issues that the public is speaking about. And so I called up Minister Bartlett and I said, Minister Bartlett, someone told me that the sign that you are building could build 2 houses. What is behind all of this? And he said, Prime Minister, I'm going to check on it and make sure that everything is okay. That there is no chickini business with the building of the sign. Now, let me be clear. A city like Montego Bay needs to have iconic attractions. Let's not question that. You know what the irony is? You had the sign there for many years. What mashed up the sign? Yes. So, we have to rebuild the sign. And I don't think that Jamaicans are saying that the sign should not be rebuilt. We have to rebuild the sign. But we want to make the sign iconic. When tourists come in, we want them to stop and run and go take selfie at the sign. Now, you know what that does? As much as you believe that might be a waste of resources, when that sign is circulated all over the world, people see, you can pay for that advertising. So 17 billion sound a little bit high. Yes, I'm not going to deny. But from what I have seen, I think the minister has done the right thing to ask for a review to make sure that what they plan to build is appropriate and is in keeping with the cost as advertised. Right? Bear in mind that I've looked at other cities that are putting up signs. I believe it's Miami, Florida, putting up a big sign, and I gather they are paying $3 million US for it. So we have to bear all these things in context. We don't have that kind of money there. So we have to be frugal, but at the same time, we have to make our thing look good too. Now, I've just said to you how well tourism is doing and the increase in the tourism revenue. It is not lost on me that whilst our share of the tourism benefit comes largely from employment, much more needs to be done with the linkages of our local industries to tourism. Much more needs to be done. And so just today, I met with a group of investors who are seeking to do resort developments in both modalities. They're looking to do EP hotels, and they're also doing what we started, all-inclusives. But interestingly, they want to build out technological agricultural enterprises to supply hotels locally with all the things that they are now importing. And I'm very happy to hear that, because that must be the next area of investment. I see a lot of business people in this town hall, and I'm saying to you, the $3 billion, $3.3 billion that is made, not all of it stays here. A large part of it is repatriated, sent all over the globe. To keep the money here, you have to produce more to satisfy the needs, because it's not just profits that are being sent abroad. It is the expenses to run the hotel. You believe that if we were growing romaine lettuce in Jamaica, you think we would have had hand to sell it now, based upon what is happening internationally? I'm appealing to the business people to start making the investment in the linkages, particularly in agriculture, so that more of the revenues earned from our sun, sea, and sand can come back here to Jamaica and benefit the people of Jamaica. The government is always very conscious of the equity issue. So while we are earning significant resources from tourism, we have to make sure that the people benefit. We are keeping the town hall here on closed Harbour Beach. I'm not going to call it the other name, because we are going to create the Emancipation Park of Montego Bay right here. It is being sponsored in a significant way by the TEF. That is the Tourism Enhancement Fund. That is the money that comes in from tourism. So we are spending it to ensure that the people can say that the sun, sea, and sand, which we export, we don't take it up and put it in a container and send it away, but the people come here and take away the experience. So that's our export, that you benefit from it. You would have seen the artist's rendition of what will be built here. And by the oohs and ahs, it has met your approval. So we know that we can move ahead with confidence that the people of Montego Bay is satisfied with it. I would have come to Jamaica with several projects, whether it is government circle, parliament, what we're doing in St. James, what we're doing in St. Thomas, all the road projects. There is one thing that we have to deal with when we are doing these major infrastructure. It's called bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Very important that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's. But bureaucracy becomes a bad thing when it is focused on dotting the T's and crossing the I's. In other words, when it is focused on the wrong things. And the problem with Jamaican bureaucracy is that it has become self-serving. It is dealing too much with itself. That if you don't get a little thing correct, the big picture is lost. Somebody need to go and leave, and them gone. And the file sit on the desk waiting for a big project to happen. But it can't happen until that person come back from leave. That is part of our culture. And so what the government has to do is to get the bureaucracy in tune with the big picture. But having said that, there is not just bureaucracy now for bureaucracy's sake, but importantly, we have to deal with something called compliance, because corruption is still very much rampant in our society. So we have to ensure that when we are spending public resources, we follow all the procedures. So all the projects that we have done, we have to make sure that, yes, the bureaucracy, all those processes are done and perfected, and then we start. So people are saying, what's happening with the project in St. Thomas? What's happening with the ring road, the bypass road? Well, they all have to go through a process. And I wish to assure you that we are working assiduously to ensure that our bureaucracy has tonic. Yes, that it can follow the process efficiently and comply with the rules and regulations. So that when we start, there is no issue about money rub up and who get contract, who not supposed to get contract, and who is friend with who. That's why them get what them get. That a process is followed. So you can be guaranteed as taxpayers that every dollar that was borrowed or budgeted for the bridge or for the road or for the beach cleanup or for the beach improvement was actually spent on the project. Lastly, even though it's not the last thing I want to tell you, but I know I've occupied too much time here now. One of the errors that, well, not even error, but, you know, Montego Bay grew without providing the housing solutions. So there is a significant problem of informal settlements. We acknowledge this. And I know that your Member of Parliament, Horace Chang, has been working with many of the communities to get you regularized. And we're going to intensify that. The NHT has been building solutions in the community. The estuary phase 1 and 2 is a major development. You have others as well, the meadows of Irwin, Cashew Grove, Latium, and Anchovy. We're going to do more. We're going to target more lands in St. James to build more housing solutions for the workers of this parish. We want you to be able to access proper housing in planned communities. That's the only way that we are going to address the issue of squatting. That's the only way that we're going to give every single Jamaican a stake in their country, a stake in their community, and a stake in their city when they can say, I own this property. So I give you the assurance, ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans, brothers and sisters, that your government is acting in your best interest, that your government is listening, that your government is responsive. We are not a perfect government, but we are striving to be the best government for you and your children. God
Look at me now, look at me now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the Prime Minister. Many things to develop, but he was also very thought-provoking as well. You can see that he has a dream, not just a dream, but a vision for the development, the strategic development of Jamaica. Thank you once again, Prime Minister, for your presentation. May I then ask the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, to come to the stage. It's your time to ask questions. We'll tell you the rules shortly, along with the Minister of National Security and a host Member of Parliament, the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, the Attorney General Marlene Malahou Fort QC, and Senator Ransford Braham will ask you to ascend the stage so that you will be able to answer all the questions posed by persons. All right, so earlier we spoke about the rules for question and answer. Of course, you know the Prime Minister is far away from Kingston and he has a very early morning tomorrow, I can tell you. So we asked earlier that we have one question per person.
That's right.
We ask that you listen attentively to the responses given, and importantly, respect is always due. We continue to stream live on social media, on the Prime Minister's pages, Andrew Holness JM. We're also live on Mellow FM, and we were live on Nationwide 90 FM. So I see a very long line starting, right? If at all that we have to cut or you are not able to ask your questions, there are several persons who are here who will be able to take your questions and will ensure that they get answered at some point. So again, for those in the line, could you just form one clear line for me, one person behind the other, so I can make sure I see everybody? So don't bunch up. And the lady at the front has the mic. The Prime Minister, everybody on stage with the microphone. All right, ma'am, please go ahead with your question. Good evening to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. People of Montego Bay, could you be quiet, please? Miss Vicky on the phone. Thank you.
Yes, Miss Vicky. Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, special good evening to you, Dr. Chang, and Mrs. Malahou. You all know me. Now, the question I need to ask, I'm no more a part of the tourist industry, but I'm speaking on behalf of the people of the straw market. Now, I had to write this down. It's one question. this venture that is being taken by the UDC, how will the straw market benefit, the Montego Bay craft market, which is down the road, benefit from this new venture that is being planned by the UDC, as things are not in good order for them over the last 2 years, sir? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vicky. May we ask, first of all, Senator Ransford Braham, Chairman of the UDC, and then the Prime Minister can also contribute. Senator Braham?
The good thing about it is that the park will be open to the public, so that the public in general will have general access to the park. In addition to that, there will be some concessions that will be made available, and craft vendors and so on would be considered for that as well. So that it is an open place, the public is not excluded, and to my mind, this is one of the greatest things that could be done, and they will benefit from it generally because of how it is designed and the fact that there will be concessions as well that they can also benefit from.
Thank you, Senator Braham. All right. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister, Dr. Chang, Mr. Malo Ford. I greet you. Welcome to Montego Bay. I am Marilyn Faulkner, a craft trader in Montego Bay. Sir, I'm asking you, we're having serious problem with the craft sectors, craft markets especially. And it's not unique to us in Montego Bay. It is right across Jamaica. We are dying because we are not making any money. The business that is coming to Montego Bay, the craft vendors are not benefiting directly from it. We are suffering greatly. The pain is too much for us. There's no national clear-cut concern in craft vendors. There's no national policy that covers us as the local Jamaican people. And I think that is a very sad thing for us in a growing Jamaica. In a prosperous Jamaica, we need to survive, and the hills are too much for us. So I'm saddened to see that our vendors have to leave. Some of them have to be begging fear in the evening to go home. 3 ships yesterday, and there was absolutely no business for the craft market.
All right.
No, this is too much for us.
Let's have a response. Thank you so much.
I know that a craft policy
Hold on, everybody, if you could.
Came before cabinet. I will have to double check if it has been approved, but very soon between the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry, MICAF, you should be hearing something about it.
Thank you so much.
Well, you know, in 2015, I believe it was, I toured your market, your craft market, and I saw firsthand the situation. I believe that there is great potential in our local art and craft. We have not made enough effort to market it. But in my discussions with Minister Bartlett, he mentioned to me that he will be using some of the TEF resources to make some improvement to your market. I think the problem is a little bigger than that. I mean, yes, we can make physical improvement, but the question is, how do we get, as the last person said, the tourists to want to come into the market, to buy your products? And I think based upon the appeals that you have made now, I'm going to give greater consideration to how we can support and assist our craft vendors and the craft market to make it a viable economic enterprise.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Next question, please. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Question to you, Dr. Chang. We've been tug and war for years, 15 to 17 years. I know, you know what I'll come about. You see my face? Dr. Chang, I'm asking, what plan you have for the old shoes market? We are suffering. We have prostitutes taking over the market, people living in the market, criminal in the market. we are suffering. Market burned down, nobody look at us. We are bad. It's bad. It's real bad in the market.
That's plans for the old shoe market, ma'am?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, let's have a response.
Yeah, thank you for the question. First, let me just remind you all, thank you for the question. And I want to point, Prime Minister, the occupants of that market actually relocated from St. James Street in support to clear the public thoroughfare and occupy that market. But it was occupied in a very deplorable state. What I'd say, I think I've had only recently a discussion with the mayor, and the mayor is now discussing local in divesting a number of local government properties in the Bogue area. They'll get the capital to redevelop there. We have also a discussion with UDC. Plans are in place. I will bring them back to the parish council how to, in fact, redevelop that old shoe market into a proper business center for small business people in Montego Bay. I'm very confident that during the course of the next financial year, we can begin to make some positive moves on it. Because as you're aware, the lands in the Bogue area, there are 2 areas owned by the St. James Parish Council. There are the old North Road areas where we have given approval for the sale, and there's the old playfield, which you all play was at Bogue Village, which we are now seeking to get permission, the approval to sell, and there'll be significant capital gains that can in fact replace there. And it is part of the mayor's plan to ensure that in conjunction with UDC, we will certainly start the redevelopment of the old shoe market. But I understand what you're saying is not only the pressure on you as vendors, but it is a source for criminal activity.
Well, I want to tell you that
right.
I toured that market just after the last fire. Myself and your member of parliament, Heron. The market was in a deplorable condition. That was about 2015 thereabout. And I did make the commitment then that were I to be in a position to address the situation, that it would be addressed. My commitment still stands, and based upon the plans that Minister Chang has outlined, I am going to ensure, I'm going to give it my personal attention. My staff is here writing down every word I say, right? So this is one item that I have picked up from this town hall that as Prime Minister, I need to direct the government to ensure that attention is paid to the issue that you have raised. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you, ma'am. Our next question, please.
My question is to Mr. Horace Chang and Andrew Olness. I am a worker for King Alarm Security Company in the... At the King Security. In the 11 o'clock p.m., I was leaving Iberia Star. An employee of that company was heading to my direction, which I get a ride, go home, which King Alarm Security Company fired me because I get a ride with a staff member of Iberia Star.
All right, ma'am, that sounds like a situation that we can probably be able to mediate. So if you see one of the staff members just here, we can be able probably to talk a little bit about it. All right? I don't know that kind of situation. We can invite our leaders to comment on.
But I think she may need an attorney to assist
Yes.
and look at the issue of a wrongful dismissal.
Yes, indeed.
So
So just come to the side and we'll be able to talk with you as well. Sir, your question, please. Good night.
Good evening. My name is Noel Morgan.
Yes, Mr. Noel, go ahead.
I'm a former detective sergeant of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and former General Secretary of the Police Federation. Much has been said about corruption, particularly in the public service, including the police force. I am living testimony to that. 28th of December 2009, I called a member of the police high command and gave him information about allegations of corruption implicating 2 senior officers, one an assistant commissioner of police and one a superintendent. What do you think happened after that? My contract was corruptly terminated. My contract, not the assistant commissioner or the superintendent. the superintendent once provided VIP security for one of Jamaica's most celebrated prime ministers.
Yeah. So, yes, go ahead. But my only concern, so just like the lady before, this matter also seems like a matter that needs to be
Just bear me out.
mediated. We'll give you another 30 seconds.
I appealed.
We'll give you another 30 seconds.
But
sir.
I am being stonewalled by the Services Commission. 7 years now I have appealed. And my appeal has not been heard. I got 3 lawyers. And each lawyer turned their backs on me. Because I strongly suspect that an element within the police force that has an income has been paying off my lawyers to work against me. That's a level of corruption.
Yes, but sir, those are allegations we can't verify. So here's what I'd do as well. Invite you to come to the side. Let's talk to someone here who'd be able to help you and mediate as well, all right? So if you come to the side, so we'll be able to deal with that as well.
Just to say,
Sir,
Naomi,
yes.
He has brought the matter to my attention.
Yes.
And I have given him a commitment that I will look into it.
So we have 2 persons at the side as well, all right? Thank you so much, sir. All right, ma'am, your question, please.
I'm not here to ask in a question.
Oh, no question.
I'm here to big up Miss Mallow first because she do a great job to me. Up a Bogil, is doing donkey track. Donkey track up a Bogil, and she come up there and she fix the road. I'm a bigger up to that.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
ma'am.
that is why I'm here.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Really appreciate it. Mrs. Ford? All right, there you go. Sir, your occasion now. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good evening all. Good evening all. All right. I've been hearing and seeing a lot of stuff on like the media and the news in relation to like the BPO sector and outsourcing. I'd just like to know, right, with the growth in the BPO sector, what would be done? What can be done to help regulate that sector? Because many individuals that work in the BPO sector are making near slave wages, right? As in some cases, some people making as low as $200 an hour. $250 an hour. That is barely, that is actually under minimum wage in some cases, right? What can be done to help better the situation of BPO workers who in many cases, even though it is considered low skill profession, right? In many cases, they have to be dealing with a lot of multitasking, a lot of soft skills,
right,
and in other cases, having to do insane shifts just to be able to afford to not even pay the bills, but to come back to work.
So thank you for your question. You're talking about improving the salaries, especially for those in the BPO sector, correct?
Not just improving the salaries, but working conditions.
And, conditions in general. So I'll invite, I know Minister Chang at one point had that portfolio, and of course anyone else, the Attorney General who will be able to respond. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it.
The conditions of service in the BPO is an issue that has been raised by workers, and I do believe that sooner than later a conversation will have to be had with the operators. There are different levels of employment, entry level, higher level, but I know it is a sore point for many persons. To the extent that many of the facilities are in my own constituency, I give you a commitment that I will have dialogue with the operators to get a better understanding, not only from your perspective, but from their perspective, and to close the gap.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say quickly, I mean, it's a very good question. It reinforces a challenge that once we have new industries emerge, you now have to have, regulations to make sure that all the stakeholders are protected and their rights are protected. But bear in mind that the BPO sector is not going to always be low-paying, low entry level type jobs. The BPO sector is evolving to a high skill, what we call knowledge outsourcing sector. And that is where Jamaica wants to position itself. Clearly you have to start at the lower levels, but where the technology is moving to, in a few years, if you believe that you're going to be just going into the BPO sector to make telephone calls or answer telephone calls, you would be mistaken. That is going to be, that part of that industry will vanish in less than half a decade. So it is going to be a higher skilled, higher paying kind of engagement. And that is why we are encouraging our young people to get trained.
Prime Minister, I just want to just reinforce that. It's already there. The problem we have in Montego Bay, we don't have enough skilled people to join the BPO service. Where the gentleman is speaking, very few is this, that all the services have been here for a long time, which are essentially call centers. And that's the smallest number of workers in the business process outsourcing now. In fact, the working service may be routine, as some workers are, but the fact is we are not getting enough trained personnel who are earning more than they're earning in other sectors. That's plain fact of life. The university graduate going into converges earns more than they earn in either the hotel or the bank. That's a fact. We can quote the figures. They get more as a starting salary than they do outside. So this pattern has changed, but there are still some of the older services there which persisted and providing jobs for some at the low income levels and lower skill level.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chang. You know, people of Montego Bay, this is why I think I'm falling in love with you real quickly. So there's a very thoughtful person who wanted to ask a question, but noticing the line is so long, sent her list of questions for the ministers and the Prime Minister. I would encourage those who are in the line who may not be able to, because we do have a little time constraint, to do the same as well. Sir, you're at the mic. You can ask your question.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Rowan Clark. I'm a restaurant owner in Montego Bay. A state of emergency had applied because of our crime problem, which I understand. But you issue a time advisory for restaurants and nightclubs, which it only goes for KFC and Burger King. 2 Fridays ago, I'm in full flight. All my customers, the police walk in, I have to give them their money back, with no regards of my food I prepare for the people. And this has been going on since the state of emergency. It had calmed down. I bring my plight to the mayor, to Dr. Chang. We still haven't get a concrete response to what is the time period for local restaurants to open.
All right, let's get that for you now. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Chang, Mayor?
There is, in the Montego Bay area, an allowance to go up until 11 o'clock for some facilities. I think the nightclubs, but the police still has the capacity and the response to look at what is happening on any daily basis and take steps to, in fact, reduce the activity of the road, which may have been closing some institutions. I know there has been a concern, the fact that I think Kentucky persistently go to 11 o'clock. Am I right, ACP Graham? Kentucky and a number of other established restaurants and some of the smaller restaurants are required to close at 9. It has been brought to my attention, and I will be having further discussion with the security team on that.
I just wanted to say that we don't set, there is no instruction. I want to be clear on this. There is no instruction for a differentiation in closing time based upon business type or business ownership. It's one set closing time. That is the instruction. Right, and that is placed in a gazette, so it's published. Now, of course, the police always has the discretion that what is happening within a local context. I suspect the issue that is being raised here is how is the police using their discretion? And you have raised the issue. It is something that I'm very sensitive to, and I will raise it with the Commissioner of Police and bring it to the National Security Council to have the matter addressed. The law must be applied equally for all persons.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to give a round of applause for those who are here who are members of the disabled community tonight. Certainly earlier we had our sign language services being provided with a stream, and now another member of our disabled community is at the mic. Ma'am, can you introduce yourself and ask your question, please?
Good evening. I'm Janet Grant, living at Farm Heights. I'm begging a little help on my house.
What happening?
Because I cannot see properly. And I'm begging help, and everywhere I go, they said, government don't send any money as yet.
All right, ma'am.
Government don't send any money that I can get any little help.
Well, you're talking to the Prime Minister now.
Sunday past, I made an announcement regarding the government putting aside some resources. As you were saying, you're being told government not provide no money for you yet.
Yes.
Well, we have made some provisions now, precisely to assist persons like yourself, who would not be able to, on your own, provide yourself with proper housing. But as a citizen of this country, your government sees it as a right, an entitlement, that whether or not you are able or disabled, you should have shelter that you can be proud of, and shelter that can protect you from the elements, and shelter that can keep you secure.
Yes.
So I am going to make sure, my friend, that you are among the first beneficiaries of the program that I announced.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Joyce. Miss Joyce, if you could come to the side for us as well.
No, the permanent secretary is going to speak to her.
All right, wonderful. Mrs. Sewell is right beside you, ma'am, so yes. Thank you so much, P.S. Sewell. Yes, ma'am, you have the microphone now. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. Good evening, all honorables and visitors. I'm making one quick statement, and I have a question. The statement is that we get a lot of money from the tourism, and beyond right there when you pass KFC on the other side, going all the way to Clark, when are they going to do a little bit of development of remodeling? You know, I was born in Mount Salem, and I went away, and I come back and send remittance home, thank you very much. And everything has always been the same. Nothing, not even a little paint on the sidewalk or anything. We need a little of the money, you know, beyond KFC up, going up, okay? And my next, I am also want to say, you know, when you reach age, and Mr. Prime Minister, you are correct about Heart Trust. I spoke to them myself, a group of people in Mount Salem, and boys that I see sitting, hanging there, you know, and I asked them even days later if they signed up. They don't want to work. And Heart Trust did say they need over 400 people. But what about the 35 and older? We are still part of the community. Do you understand? We need jobs too. You know, it seems like Jamaica does not hire 35 and older. So please address that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much,
They
ma'am.
do not.
Thank you.
On the question,
I am pleased to tell you that I negotiated with the Prime Minister about flexibility in the training age for persons. And right now, we're running in my constituency of St. James West Central over 150 hard trainee, and they are beyond the set age, many in the 30s, some in the 40s, even in the 50s. So there is flexibility. There is flexibility. Persons seem to stay away, but I'm pleased to tell you that this Prime Minister has given instruction that no one is to be left behind, regardless of your age.
Our policy is lifelong learning. And at heart, there really is no age limit. I mean, there is a minimum age that you would have to be to enter into some of the programs. But there really is no discrimination by age for training. And many of the programs, you have all the age cohorts are represented. And in terms of employment, there is no discrimination, really. I don't know of any discrimination by age. In fact, the highest cohort, the highest unemployment rate for any cohort is the young, between 14 and 24. That age cohort experiences the highest level of unemployment.
I just want to say, you raised an issue of when you spend some of the tourism money in town. I think currently, this mayor is building several miles of sidewalk throughout Montego, rehabilitating sidewalk, all of a sudden downtown Montego Bay. They have the road from Gully right to Salisbury was recently refurbished at considerable expense. That's the road you're referring to. From right at Gully right up to Megatop was last year totally refurbished along with sidewalk. Other areas in Montego Bay are being worked on in terms of the plan development. Some of it will have to be done on a longer term basis. We are currently concluded plan to provide houses for the people in Canterbury that we can redevelop the entire gully to Canterbury area in the very near future. And we're talking about this financial year coming. So work is being done to bring about improvement in physical features downtown Montego Bay. And that will also be enhanced by the development of the perimeter road to reduce the congestion downtown Montego Bay and open up business. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Mayor?
And what I can say also to the lady, you have covered the sidewalk project that we have embarked on. And it will, well, we have a sidewalk now from Cornwall Regional Hospital all the way down to the clock. That was done recently. We will be starting on Barnett Street soon. But what we have done recently, and I will say now that the Prime Minister is here, we had moved a resolution, Mr. Prime Minister, in our last council meeting for $385 million to be dedicated to the repaving of all the streets downtown Montego Bay, to bring it up to a standard that we can be proud of our city. Because as I have said, Montego Bay is what we sell when we are selling tourism. But downtown Montego Bay, Mr. Prime Minister, needs some attention. And what she's saying is true. But I will also use this medium to appeal to our business operators and our property owners to give their properties a facelift, because that's a part of the problem. That is a major part of the problem. I mean, property owners are collecting large amount of monies, but yet still they do nothing to the building. So that's an area that I'll be reaching out to these property owners. But you can rest assured that those streets and those sidewalks will be given the highest attention come next year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
May I also invite you to take a look in the many streets in Mount Salem and see what we have done there. There is no way you can say nothing has happened. Take a look.
All right, thank you, AG. All right, so now, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you to look at your watches and clocks?
Things are good.
So, having looked at your watches and clocks, you'll see that time is running away. For those closer to the back, I'm going to invite you to start writing your questions on a piece of paper. Just give them to me. We'll ensure that they are responded to, and we'll post them on social media as a response coming from this town hall. So we'll only have 8 more minutes for question and answer and to wrap up. All right, sir? You have the mic at this time.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. National Security Chief, and the Mayor of Montego Bay, and all distinguished guests. Please allow us citizens, law-abiding, tax-paying members of Montego Bay to say something. I know I might look a little rough because I haven't gone home since Monday, being chased by police officers and so-called badman police in Montego Bay, where badman police isn't good police. I'd like to say something, please, Mr. Prime Minister, if you allow me, sir. It's a question and answer section. A sophisticated sodomite society is not a sophisticated sanctified.
Sir, hold on now, sir. Hold on. Remember, we have a rule. We have to be very respectful. And two, you really have to ask one question. But I think I see where you're going in terms of you need specific intervention. So there is the head of the police high command here in the parish. I'd invite you to come to the side as well, and let's deal with the issue so that we'll be able to get we can get some help to you for your specific issue, all right? Yes. So if you could come to the side for us, and we'll address it. Yes, but one, the first rule was you have to be respectful, and you weren't a while ago. Thank you so much, sir. The lady behind you is next. So come to the side, and we can deal with your issue. Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Andrew Olness. I have a problem, sir, from 1995. The highway project in Trelawney, they have destroyed my home with bulldozer. And they give us some housing scheme where I and my 6 children was left stranded. My house was bulldozer. They built back the scheme house, sir, and until now I don't get a key to go to my home. I have to be staying with people in Westmoreland. I leave from there this morning to come here to see somebody to talk to them, sir. I need some help, sir, because I don't live nowhere, sir.
So your house is in Trelawney, you're saying, ma'am?
I was living in Trelawney.
Trelawney.
1995, and they bulldoze all the houses because of the highway project.
All right, so the Prime Minister has solutions for housing. So listen, and then again, come to the side so we can get some specific information.
Specific question. Obviously, there should be a file on your
yes, I
on your
have the
case.
picture of my house here and the
someone
documents.
someone from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation will speak with you directly.
Yes, can you go to
and
that
will
side?
ensure that you get some response.
Okay.
That side, ma'am. Thank you so much. So go to your left. The next person, now ladies and gentlemen, remember we only have 6 minutes left. Use it wisely. Allow the gentleman on crutches is going with the lady. Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening to you, everyone. My name is Elma Jean Maduri, and I'm the president for the Barrytown Youth Upliftment and Community Development Organization. Okay, our aim is to assist the youth in getting jobs, skills training, etc., which we work through hard and such. But my real question is, we have sent persons into the hotels, right? And they're there on training without a stipend, without anything. What can be done about that, and how does that happen? Because if we are trying to assist them and they're going on trainings and they are not getting a stipend to go and come, we have to try to help them in order to really go to work. They borrow money to go to work, and then they're in more debts because they have no money to assist with going to work and back. All they offer is lunch.
All right.
One meal.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So let's hear the response, all right?
Anyone from tourism would want to take that question? Delano?
It appears that the issue will have to be taken up. Right.
Because at the same time, they are not sure they'll be getting the job anyway. Because many times,
all right,
after training, they're back out.
So
no, there
again,
are two things, Prime Minister. There are 2 types of training is made available in association with heart to a number of people from the community, and it's free of cost. They go to training. They don't get a stipend. There is contention because there are a number of people recruited to the Community Security and Justice Program who, when they are sent to training, they're recruited to special programs that seeks to get the least, the most disenfranchised in the community. They are given a stipend for lunch. The difference in fact, they provide their own lunches, and when they go to the heart program, free of cost, lunch is provided for them. And that's what's causing a bit of a disquiet out there, which we may have to look at. That's the current program. There are several, that means, like Baritone, the CSJP is not very active there. All the people are invited by tourism sponsors it, and they get lunch and they get training, what will allow them to access a job. In the other areas where the CSJP is operating, some people get a stipend, and usually it's the male groups off the street and goes for life.
You see the beauty of having such a town hall meeting. This is an issue that would never come across the desk of the Prime Minister. I would never be aware of this but having people raise these kinds of issues, it can help us to refocus government to address the little things that oftentimes, if they are improved, can make life so much easier.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Ma'am, if you could, this gentleman on crutches has been trying. If you would be able to allow him so he can pose his question. Thank you so much for that. Sir?
Thank you very much. Good night, Mr. Prime Minister and Member of Parliament, audience. Now, we as taximen in Montego Bay here, it's like we are the criminal towards the police and the transport authority. Some would like to know why. Because if we work 20,000 for the week, transport authority will take back 25. Police, them travel with 3-4 records behind them, along with the transport authority. We have certain amount of kilometer from our loading bay. And if we even step 1 inch from the loading bay, them seize we car and say, we are run contrary. How must we run contrary in Montego Bay, Mr. Prime Minister?
All right, thank you so much,
People
sir.
want to go there. If we take them from Spot Valley, take for instance, we can't go Bottom Road if we touch Bottom Road with the passenger. Transport out there is ready to take away.
All right, so let's have the Minister of National Security. Of course, you know that P-STEP has been formed in the police force, and others to answer. Yes.
We'll have to discuss with the gentleman the concerns. The responsibility of the police is to, in fact, enforce the law where there's breaches, and that's what they're doing. But we'll have to examine if there's any over-exuberance on the part of any of the teams out there. But I have to remind all the drivers, Montego Bay is very congested, and it's a real challenge managing traffic through Montego Bay, which is why we are putting so much money in infrastructure and in roads across to allow for alternative routes and other areas to get parking. But there are several areas downtown which have been earmarked for parking for taxis, which are overcrowded, and we have to look at how we manage those effectively. The reality is that the police is only act when there's a breach of the law.
It's a very important question that has been raised. I mean, there's so many issues that are tied up in that one question about how public transportation is treated. Now, I am aware of the concern expressed by taximen and public passenger transportation operators. There is a new law in place. The police have taken a greater interest in enforcing the traffic laws. The public is also demanding greater order in public spaces. As much as there is a complaint about how taximen are treated, there are equal complaints by citizens about how taximen operate on the road. And as Prime Minister, I hear and understand the complaints of the taximen, and I hear and understand the complaints of the citizen. I want my friends in the taxi business, and I used to be in the taxi business myself many years ago. So I understand that business very well. Very well. But Jamaica is entering into a new era. It will have some dislocations. Some people will be uncomfortable with the change. But the era is one of greater public order. We cannot continue with disorder. The police commissioner has been mandated. We have formed the new P-STEP. We are working, and based upon what my friend the taximan just said, enforcement is taking place. But there is something in what he has said that, as Prime Minister, I have to pay careful attention to. are the rules as they have been drafted and implemented wisely done? Have they taken into consideration all the demands of the public? So in the definition of the routes, have we actually mapped routes to the organic traffic patterns? Meaning that are the routes matching where people actually want to go? We have made an investment in the first phase of $25 million in greater traffic management for Montego Bay proper and environs. We have done a traffic study. We are synchronizing the stoplights. We're going to make greater investments in widening your local roads at the same time as we put in the bypass. In all of that, it is not just the enforcement, my friend, that we are going to do, but we are going to ensure that we take into consideration the proper routing, which makes sense, so that the law that is being enforced makes sense, so that you don't have the excuse to say, but the people want this, and you are unwisely giving me that. That is being done now as we speak, my friend. So in a matter of months, you will see a smarter city. Because that is really what you need. You need a smarter city, properly planned, with infrastructure and technology working together to make your operations more efficient. In all of that, my friend, we can only prosper if there is order. Order is beneficial to the taximan and it is beneficial to the citizen. My friend, your government is not going to do anything to disenfranchise you. There are issues that have to be addressed, but I give you the assurance, I give every single taximan the assurance that the new law that is put in place will be applied fairly and justly. That is why we emphasize addressing issues of corruption. That is why we emphasize ensuring that our policemen and women are equipped and trained to deal with you in a professional way. That is why we emphasize that we have to widen the roads and synchronize our traffic signals and put in place cameras, because Jamaica has to come out of the backward, old, chaotic way of doing things and become an orderly, decent, law-abiding place where every single Jamaican can feel safe on their roads. And that is what we're doing. And I ask the nation for understanding. I ask our taxi men for understanding. We are going to, we hear the complaints. You know, the minister has just sent me a note to say he wants to meet and hear what they have to say and review some of the complaints. We are a listening government, and we are going to do that. Thank you very much for the question, my friend.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Good people of Montego Bay, we're out of time, but we can allow 2 more questions. Now, this lady was very gracious because she allowed the gentleman to go before her, so she'll be the last person in the line. And then we have a very special person who stayed up beyond her bedtime to ask the Prime Minister 1 question. So we'll allow her as well. I have all the other questions in my hand, questions about the education scholarships, questions about roads. We will ensure that they are all responded to. So may I invite everybody else, just write down your questions, give them to me, and we'll ensure that they are responded to. Ma'am, you're the last person in the line to ask a question then tonight.
1 question. The name is Thelma Fairweather Siegel. I'm not from Montego Bay. I'm from St. Anne, Keith. I was in Kingston. I forgot to give you the name of the district. We are paying taxes. Our taxes don't do anything for us. We don't have any road. Miss Attorney General, what you said, I want you to hold that. You can sue them on our behalf. Come in my district, sir, and come and look. I am over 50 and I've never seen road in that district. And we are paying more. I know for sure I'm paying more taxes than what is being paid in certain part of Kingston, right? Where there is the basic We have none. Right? So I would really like to talk to you, Madam Attorney General, because I don't know where else. I leave from St. Anne to come here. Again.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am.
Keith, St. Anne, Northwest, Dry Harbor Division.
Thank you so much.
Oxide Place is there. We don't have no road.
We appreciate what you have said. We appreciate that you have come this far to make your case. I believe I may have toured that area once, Dry Harbor Division. I think we probably toured that area. We will make sure that we pay some attention to that community. Keith in Northwest Center.
All right, you have the commitment from the Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen in the line, my apologies. Really, we do have to go. Just write down the questions. I know you can write them down and give them to us. We'll ensure that those questions are answered. Our little one with us, you wanted to say something to the Prime Minister? Here you go. You have the mic now.
Good evening, everyone. And my name is Jadine Scott, and I attend the Howard Cook Primary School. Mr. Honorable and Your Holiness, my question is that within all the construction, what will happen to the traffic? The traffic in this segment is already very heavy. And children at my school come very late because of the traffic. So the traffic will only worsen because of this. So I want to know what will happen to those children.
Thank you. And she's a sub-prefect too. Mr. Prime Minister?
Well, I'm going to ask Minister Chang to answer that one.
Very good question to our Prime Minister. I'll take it on. The perimeter road bypass road called will not affect, in fact, will bring relief. It will not be on this road. It's around Montego Bay and designed to take off some of the traffic. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you to realize we have done some roads through Norwood, through Glendevon, and therefore back through Vernon Drive. All those are roads that will allow for alternative routes. And as we complete a number of other roads, in fact, I think Middle Road is going out to contract now. I'm going to advertise so that taxi drivers know they can take some alternative routes to get from the north side to the south side. Although they're not a perimeter road yet, they can drive through these other roads and take the students to school without coming through downtown Montego Bay and going through the congestion that is holding up everybody late. There is alternative to going through the congested city center, as the Prime Minister indicated. And those constructions are not affecting the congestion downtown. It was designed to relieve them. As in the corporate area, you find that the actual roads are being reconstructed. Our roads are not that way. We're adding new roads to bring North Montego Bay to South Montego Bay. So I want to assure you there is a way to get to school early, and there'll be additional routes to make it very easy to move from north-south in Montego Bay.
Just very quickly, right? I mean, we're closed now, but just to answer the question that was posed, adding to what Horace has said. In the initial phase of the construction work, there will be dislocation. But after that, we are certain that we have planned the infrastructure development well, and so you will see significant ease in traffic afterwards. We are trying to do it very quickly so that the dislocation does not last long. So bear with us while we improve.
Sir, if you could call the student. Where is she at? Where is that student at?
But that's it.
Miss Sub-Prefect? She's at the back? It's beyond her. All right, we'll get her.
So I personally just want to say thanks to the citizens who have turned out. You have been a lovely audience. We have gotten good questions. We have taken note of all that you have said. Those who we can assist, we will assist. The issues that have been raised have certainly helped us to refine our response to your needs. God bless you. Until I see you again at some other event, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Put your telephone numbers and your questions.
So thank you, everybody. I'm getting so many questions on papers. Remember to put your names on it. We will certainly respond on the Prime Minister's social media pages. All right, thank you.